If you hadn't played the nerd in The Breakfast Club, who would you have rather played?
Bender would have been fun. Yeah, I don't know. I like Bender's role. I thought that was fun. But Molly would have had nothing to do with me then. She didn't, yeah. 2 movies in a row. She was like,
Welcome to Richmond.
Thank you, man. Be back.
Good to see you, meet you in person finally. Like I said, a couple of years ago, if you were a fan of GalaxyCon Live, we did our virtual events, and I had the pleasure of hosting them then. And we had a pretty good conversation about a lot of the common stuff. So what I'll do is I want to talk about the stuff we didn't get to on that. Check that out online, or just feel free to ask a question if you got to know when I do that. So I always start this. Let's go to the origin story. How did all this start for you?
I think in my grandparents' house, I was working funerals and wakes. I used to get up and imitate my whole family as a kid. I was one of those little kids, like a lot of kids doing shows for your family. So I think as a young boy, I'm talking like 7, 8 years old, I would kind of mimic my aunts and uncles, and I would literally appear at my grandmother's kitchen or a funeral or a wake or whatever, So I don't know if I was set for being a stand-up comic or anything, but that's actually how it started, just kind of making my family laugh, which I think a lot of people in the entertainment business might relate to, which is a great place to start.
Right on. Again, you have just a tremendous body of work and so many varied projects. And again, we talked about this before. I love the fact that I think you're one of the few teenage actors that played the kind of nerdy kid, and then within a few years, you played the jock. I think you're the only one that ever pivoted into that.
Thank you for noticing, yeah. Things change, yeah.
Yes.
You just kind of go where the work is. I remember I did a movie about 10 years ago with Danny Trejo, who I love, and it was a Western, and we were cast as half-brothers, believe it or not. Gringo, me, and Danny, right? So it was really funny. But one time I asked Danny, I said, because I wanted to pick his brain, and he's been around a long time. He said, Mike, I'm like a mechanic. I go where the work is. I went, logged, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's what this business teaches you. You have to mix it up and be ready for whatever it takes. And I've been very blessed. I thank God for the long career I've had. So.
Absolutely. Out of everything you've done, what's the craziest day on any set that you can recall?
Got to pick a decade. Let me see. Well, I'll tell you, when I did Halloween Kills back in 2019, that was a lot of fun. I got to the set, and David Gordon Green is a really great guy, and he really reminded me of John Hughes to the extent that he's very collaborative, very open, very loose guy. But I got to the set, and he pulled me aside. He's like, "You're the hero of this movie." I was like, "What?" I thought the hero was the anti-hero, Mike Myers, But so it was a real thrill to be a part of that project. I was really thrilled. We shot that in about a 5 or 6 week schedule in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it was just a great team to work with. So that was, in recent years, that one really stood out for me. It was a great challenge, and I was really pumped to be a part of that franchise. And as you guys might know, horror fans are serious. They're like rock and roll fans. They know their stuff, and they're like, no, the mask was different in Halloween 4 or 5, and, they know their stuff. So, but it was really a great project to be a part of, so I was pumped about that one.
It very, very enjoyable entry into that franchise.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Thank you.
I can't say that about all of them, but I can say that about yours.
Got it. Yeah, well, there's 13 of those films.
I know.
Tommy Doyle couldn't get one sequel. I don't know. He took me out pretty bad there with my own bet. But anyway, that's show business. Yeah. This lady's texting. We're at the show. I'm sorry.
We mentioned this before, and
Sure.
jumped some parts instead. So you're a producer, got a company, and you've been working on several projects. Tell us about that.
Sure. I have a production company called Manhattan Films, and we just started in the last couple of years. I did a film back in 2020, it was called The Class, which is sort of a modern-day version of The Breakfast Club. It was written by a guy named Nick Solozzi, who was a really talented writer-director from Chicago. And so that was really fun. It was very different. It was an original script. It was 6 kids instead of 5. I played the mean principal this time. It was really pretty fun. I know, things change, right? I couldn't help but think of Paul Gleason, my late great friend. You mess with the bull, you get the horns. But I was kind of that guy in this film. And that was The Class. And then we just did another film, which is called Roswell Delirium, which I also play a part in, and I co-produced along with my partner, the writer-director named Rick Bakewell. So that, we're close to distribution on that. And so, yeah, we have 2 projects so far coming out of the gate. And I've been working on a new show called Reacher. Anybody been watching Reacher with that guy? Yeah. It's all steroids. No. No, he's a good guy. It's a great show to be a part of. I've been really blessed. I've been working on Bosch the last couple of years. I did Bosch Legacy, and now we're shooting season 3 of Reacher, which is great.
Yeah.
We hope it'll be. I haven't seen it yet. Hopefully it turns out well.
Really. What's the dream gig? If you could write your own ticket.
What's the dream gig? I mean, they're all a blessing, you know. I've been doing this a long time. I started when I was 8 years old. I'm 55 now, so I've been doing it a while. So you know what? The blessing is the work and the work experience and just staying humble, keeping your head, you know, eyes on the road and just looking forward to whatever comes. You know, something that was really funny that happened like a couple years ago, I got a spot on the Goldbergs, which was really funny. And the first episode they did, which was I thought were pretty funny, was Rusty was a security guard at Disneyland who wouldn't let the Goldbergs in. So that was pretty funny. And then that led me to being the guidance counselor for Adam, which also was fun. And the next thing you know, I was on the show for 3 years playing the guidance counselor. So it was a good lesson in showing up, doing your job, and maybe not having expectations, you know. And then they kept bringing me back, which was a lot of fun. But Wendy, the lead of that show, was great to work with. She's a lot of fun. Wendy McClellan, yeah. McClendon Covey. It's a long last name.
No,
But yeah, so that was fun too.
Right on. Before I jump in the audience, I just want to say this again.
A stage dive into the audience?
Yeah, I'll literally jump into it. Yeah.
Good. I'd like to see that.
I've had myself and everybody else. I just want to thank you because you've been involved with so many wonderful projects, and I'm so glad that you're continuing to work and continuing good stuff. So on behalf of myself and everybody else here, I thank you for your talents. I thank you for professionalism. And I thank you for the performances you brought to all these roles.
Very kind. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
and thank you for indulging my capricious curiosity.
I appreciate that. No, it's very nice. But with no audience, there's no us. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Like I said, we'll do a line over on this side. So we get the camera through here. Get behind this lady. And right in the little fluorescent square here. And whoever asks the first question gets 2 pieces of candy. So, oh, it's the lady who was texting. Okay. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
And how are you doing, sir? 1, you're a great actor. 2, I'm a huge Def Leppard fan.
Yeah, all right.
So you know what I'm getting ready to probably ask you. I have my own group for Hampton Roads. It's a fan and tribute group.
Oh, wow.
So what was it like portraying Robert John Mutt Lange in Hysteria, the Def Leppard story?
Well, thank you for remembering that one. That was back in the day when VH1 was making movies. Anybody remember that? VH1?
Yeah.
It was VH1 biopics. It was like an outtake from Spinal Tap. Because I got to the set in Montreal, and all these young lads who were playing the band, and they were all talented, good guys. They were literally like practicing air guitar by themselves on the sidewalk. I was like, okay, this is a job. And then they gave us the wigs. I was like, this is good. This is good. Now it's getting like we had all the 80s glam wigs. And so it was funny. You know, it was a funny experience. I was shooting the Dead Zone at the time, and then I got the offer, so I just went to Montreal and shot that film. But it was a lot of fun. It was interesting. And I love their sound. Def Leppard is a great band. They've always had a great sound. So, yeah, with that Union Jack. All right. Thank you for your question, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go. We did too. Thank you.
Pour some sugar on me.
Hey, what's your name?
Don. What you got, Don? In like 1985, you're playing in the Breakfast Club, Weird Science, skinny, small, bullied guy. A couple years later, you're Johnny Be Good, the #1 recruited high school football player in the country. In that time, a couple years, was that a growth spurt, or did you intentionally bulk up and really work out to become that size?
Funny. Yeah, I actually had a friend. He was a fighter. Mike Tyson's been a friend of mine since I was in high school. We became friends. And there was a fighter named Tom Patty who also lived with Cus D'Amato and was trained by Cus, along with Mike. And he's from Stockton, California. So at that time, I knew those guys for a couple of years, and I actually asked Tom to train me for Johnny Be Good. And so I was like, yeah, train me like a fighter. And he meant it. He took it to heart because he'd get me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd be swinging a sledgehammer. He'd be handing me milkshakes. And, you know, we'd do like a hardcore workout. Then we'd go to the local university. I'd be running steps. So I got what I asked for. You know, he really trained me. And I put on about, I think, 30 pounds in like 6 weeks. So yeah, to your question, I did train with the fighter, like a fighter. So it was fun. It was good. It was nice to transform, too, instead of just being the skinny, gawky kid, which was fun, too.
Thanks you.
Thanks for your question, Don.
Hi, what's your name?
Anita.
This guy's not getting any candy over here. We need some candy. Everybody all right? You guys okay? All right.
I've got a bag, so if we want, you know. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, was it Anita?
Anita. Yeah. I know you were only on Saturday Night Live for a very brief time, but do you have like a favorite story from that time?
I just want to translate that. Brief time means the 1985 season was the worst season in the history of SNL. I just want to Just want to throw that in there, but thank you for your night. It was a thrill. It was honestly, even when the show wasn't funny, just the doing of that show was an amazing experience. We come in on a Monday, everybody assembles, everybody starts teaming up and partnering off. They bring in the guest host of that week, and then I don't know, a lot of people, you guys may or may not know this if you don't know the history of it, but it goes the whole week. Like, we work from Monday till Saturday. We do the show, we start rehearsing on Thursday. The show is decided at a Wednesday read-through, and then Lauren goes back into his room and puts up all the sketches like you see on the corkboard. And then from Thursday morning on, I mean, we get to work at like 10 a.m. It's not like banker's hours, but we get to work that, and we work into the night. Thursday rehearsals, all day Friday rehearsals, and then Saturday, same thing, all day rehearsal. And they actually do the show twice on Saturday night. They bring in a guest audience at 7:30, and they're all standing in the hallway. We do it then. We have about an hour break in between. We run up to Lauren's office, which is in the bleachers there, and get his notes or the cuts that they were going to make. And then we do the show live again, and it was incredible. So it's a real thrill. You don't really have time to think about how funny it is or not, until you're there in front of an audience, and then they decide, as always, So it's a great experience, even though the year I was in was not so great. But listen, you can't take it from me. I was there, and I'm grateful to God for it. It was a great experience. Yeah. Thank you,
Anita.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Anita, are you dressed
what's
like
your
a
name?
cat? Is this a cat we should know about? Of course you are. Rumble Teaser from the musical Cat. Beautiful. That looks great. Thank you, ma'am. You too.
What's your name?
Jennifer. Well, one thing, you have been in some of my top 10 films of all time: Breakfast Club, Edward Scissorhands, Pirates of Silicon Valley. Was amazing. You've worked with some of the top people in Hollywood: John Hughes, Tim Burton, all of them. What kind of things have you taken away from working with people like this to grow your career and stuff like that?
That's a great question. I consider I've worked with some great directors. Certainly John was one of them. Tim Burton was another one. It was about a couple of weeks into shooting Edward Scissorhands way back in 1990. I looked over, and Tim Burton has the hair looked like a lost member of The Cure. Remember the band The Cure in the 80s? And he's got his leg up on the director's chair. He's a really interesting guy. But when he directs, he really springs into action. And if you look at the elements of Scissorhands, he co-wrote that screenplay, and it's like, he grew up in Burbank. He was a student of animation. His favorite actor was Vincent Price. So he kind of created this world. And I've had a lot of time to think about that film. It's kind of like Pinocchio meets Romeo and Juliet or something. It's a really interesting film. But he was a great one to work for and with, and a real visionary director. I mean, I think his movies are pieces of art. They're really great. Then I worked with Chris Nolan in 2007 on The Dark Knight. I played the news reporter in there, and I get kidnapped by the Joker, which was fun. He's another visionary director, really brilliant guy. I think one of the keys for him is he shoots multiple cameras. Like, Chris Nolan will set up a shot, and there'll be 6 cameras rolling. Like when we did that whole sequence when all the cops are in the street there and the Joker attacks, I mean, there was literally like 1,000 extras. But he would have cameras deployed not only on the ground, but in the buildings, like up in windows and stuff. So he was also really brilliant to work with and very kind of subdued. Both he and Tim Burton, kind of quiet guys, But when they spring into action with their work, they're really on it. So it was a real thrill. I remember going into Chris Nolan's office when I got to London, and he had actually designed the Batmobile too. So it's very interesting with some of these great directors. I consider these great, at least those 3, I would consider really great filmmakers. They're really visionary in ways that you wouldn't expect. And it was very humbling, I had this feeling while I was making The Dark Knight. It's funny because I heard Downey got all these awards this year for Oppenheimer, and good on him. It's fantastic for Robert. And Oppenheimer was a great picture, but I remember him kind of like when I worked with Chris Nolan. It's interesting. He wore the same thing every day. It was always like a blazer with a vest, and it was kind of like one of those long coats. And he was very quiet and kind of subdued, So it was hard to get a read on him, but I remember just being fascinated by him. When I was on the set, I was just looking at this guy like, he's brilliant, man. He really is. He really knows what he's doing. And he's kind of contained, too. He kind of keeps it quiet, His wife is his producing partner, his amazing lady, Emma, and she's actually never on the set. So they have a very interesting dynamic, He's on the set, and she produces behind the scenes, but he was a great one to work with, too. And it was an honor. So thank you for your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Yes. Hi, what's your name?
Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Got your
One of
St.
my-
Patty's hat on. Very nice. Very nice.
Almost
I like that,
Gloria,
yeah.
Pokemon trainer.
Okay, okay. See, I'm Irish. I'm seeing green. She's like, it's a Pokemon hat. I had no idea.
It's multi-purpose.
Gotcha. I'm a little slow.
One of my favorite films of yours is Out of Bounds, really random one, which I own on Laserdisc, which I'm really proud of.
For those of you young enough to know what a Laserdisc is, it's a Blu-ray the size of an LP.
It was about 10 minutes after
If you
the
don't know what an
Betamax
LP
left.
is,
Yeah.
I can't help you.
Yeah, it's gone like the disc. Yeah, but thank
Well,
you.
except for in my household.
Very nice. Cool.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that role, you were like action hero, like, living on the streets. So I wondered what that was like, and I was wondering if you got to spend any time with Susie Sue of Susie and the Banshees. The
Great
bands
question.
that played, did you get to enjoy any of those?
Thank you for that. Yeah. So that's kind of a two-parter. Yeah. I mean, at that time, I think what I was really trying to do, and I was probably overcompensating to some level, I wanted to separate myself from the John Hughes world that he welcomed me into in a way. So I took that picture on. It was a great project. The same year I was doing SNL, so it was a busy year when I was 18. But Susie Sue, I'm glad you brought her up. She was really cool. There was a sequence in the film where I'm on the hunt for information about who killed my brother, and we go into this kind of rock club, and it's set in L.A. in the 80s, and her band was there. And I remember we had like a little after party at my house after that days of shooting, and she was just really cool. She had great advice for me. She really cared. She was looking out for me and kind of telling me things to look out for, just in terms of being in show business or whatever. And she was really gracious and really cool. And I have some photos from that day there that are cool. But she was great. And I love that song too, Cities and Dust. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
You good one. Hey, what's your name?
I'm Kurt.
Hey, Kurt.
Given your huge bank of work, do you have a favorite out of everything that you've done, movies or shows? Anything that really rings true to you?
Tell you what, let's broaden it a little bit. What's one of your favorites? You don't have to say a favorite, but one of your favorites.
Well, thank you for that. No, when I got the Dead Zone, that was a big challenge for me. That was a lot of fun. I never thought I'd have a TV show, and I really poured myself into the pilot episode, which I thought was pretty solid. And I was just grateful to God to have a show. I never thought that would happen or evolve, In the years since, when I work as an actor, like I love working on hit shows, and I like mixing it up a lot. But that stood out to me. I made another picture in 1999 called 61 with Billy Crystal. He was another great guy to work with. That was about the 1960 Yankee team, and I played Whitey Ford in that. So certain projects stand out in your mind. Halloween Kills, as I mentioned, was another standout for me. I like just mixing it up. Some of the actors that I've always admired growing up, some of my favorites like Nicholson or all those greats. Even someone like Ben Kingsley. I admire actors that can go from light to dark and kind of straddle different worlds. And that's what I've enjoyed, to be very honest. The idea of celebrity and being famous and all that stuff, it came at a very young age for me. And, I used to joke with my parents. It took me 20 years to process the first 20 years of my life, because between 15 and 20, a lot happened, in my life. But that's always been less interesting to me than just doing the work and trying to be an artist and maintain, a direction and a focus in my life. So I've been grateful for that, and that's just been my focus, to kind of mix it up and play different parts. But thank you for your question, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. You mentioned 61. I always like hearing this story. You had an interesting costume affectation in that, correct?
Oh, I was a righty, so I pitched when I was a little kid. I played Little League, but Whitey Ford was a lefty. So what happened was, they figured out that they gave me a backwards uniform, they'd flip the negative. So I had kind of a backwards Yankee uniform, and I was on the mound. And if anybody hasn't thrown a ball from a professional mound, like a mound, it's what is it, 60 feet to home base? Or 90 feet? What's the distance between plate?
He says 60.
Okay, but when you're on the mound, it feels like it's a lot further than that when you're trying to throw a strike, But that was another great experience, to work for Billy Crystal, who was a legend in our industry, and he was a lot of fun. I got a quick story. At the premiere, we had a party for the film back in 1999, and I walked up to Whitey Ford after the movie, and I said, "Sir, Michael Hall, it was an honor to play you in the film." And he did such a coach thing. It's so funny. He kind of looked past me, gave me and he goes, "I hope you had a good curveball, kid," and walked away. I was like, "Mr. Ford." But that was a great project. Thanks.
And what's your name?
Gus.
Hey, Gus.
Wikipedia's not always right, but I mean, you mentioned Saturday Night Live. I can't imagine, because I saw the cast, part of that was Robert Downey Jr., Randy Quaid. So what was it like, 17 or 18, getting picked up for that to even do Saturday Night Live?
Thanks for your question. like I said, I was doing Out of Bounds in that year, and I had a unique situation and opportunity because unfortunately I couldn't do the whole season. So it was very kind of Lorne Michaels and NBC to let me out because I was shooting this film, and so I wound up doing I think like 13 of 18 or 20 episodes that year. But as I said, it's just such a high pressure environment. It's interesting. A lot of people don't see that. They think it's something that's improvised. It's very much written. And as I said, we come in on a Monday. Everybody's writing Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday there's a read through. And then Lauren sits at the head of the table and basically he brings in the heads of the department, and whoever laughs, whatever gets the most yucks, he takes notes and he goes back to his office. And then it's like 4 days of rehearsal right after that. So it was just it's a pressure cooker. It's exciting. And even in episodes where you don't really have a good sketch or something funny, you're just, by the time they bring us all out at the end, and just to be a part of it, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps, that feeling. And I remember in that year, Broadway Video, which is a company owned by Lorne Michaels, they were having a party for the Best of Dan Aykroyd release. And Downey and I got to meet Aykroyd, and he gave us such a great sense of what it was going to feel like. He's like, when you're in the studio, you're going to feel the red light come on the 3 cameras, and you're going to feel the audience like this there with you, and you're going to know that you're beaming out to the whole country. And he really described it well, and that is what you feel like. So even in shows where you know you didn't really have much, it's still a thrill, you know. And then there's always a great rock band or some great music artist that comes in. So it's something else, I tell you, you know. Really, it was cool. Thank you,
boss. Yeah, take it out.
I hope I'm answering these guys. Am I answering these questions? I hope so.
Hey, what's your name?
Alan.
Hi, Alan.
How you doing, Mr. Hall?
Good, sir.
Hey, don't mind that lady in the flag there. She didn't mean that in no disrespect. I tell you that now. She's
None
a
taken.
big fan.
I appreciate it.
But
Thank
Weird
you.
Science was actually my favorite, and how your attitude was and that I kind of familiar with it a little bit. Cool. So was that your creativity? You know, like Lisa, she don't have the keys, Lisa.
Nice,
There's
Alan.
another one that you say that I ain't gonna say it in front of the
Oh,
audience
right.
for younger viewers, but
Right.
that's one of my favorites.
Right. Halfway up my, yeah, I got you. You know what that came from, guys? When I was a kid, my heroes were actually not actors. I love musicians. I love rock stars. I'd be reading Cream magazine, listening to Van Halen in my room. You know. But my heroes were like Richard Pryor and George Carlin. And I would listen to all those old albums, and I think that's by osmosis or something. That's what got in. And so when we did 16 Candles, we did Breakfast Club. When I worked with John, it was like we were family. It was like he was my older brother. We just had such a close relationship. And I would often be at John Hughes' house on the weekends with him and his wife and his 2 young kids. So I was like the third Hughes son in a way. But my point being is when I would come to set and I'd listen to those old Richard Pryor albums and I'd start imitating. There was a character Richard Pryor used to do called Mudbone. And you got to go back to his 70s albums. So I would imitate that for John. And often I'd be at his house. We'd watch Live at Sunset Strip or whatever. So that's what gave him the idea, the skinny little white kid imitating Richard Pryor. So he let me do that. And believe me, it shocked me too. So the whole chicks cannot hold it. Like that all came from just, you know, clowning and just being an idiot as a kid on set. And then it led to Weird Science. And so I kept that shit up. I just kept imitating Richard Pryor. And I was like, what about this? And so that's what happened in Weird Science. So a lot of that scene was written, but a lot of it was ad-libbed. And you know, what John Hughes did for me in creating that kind of creative atmosphere, he did for a lot of others. So I can't just say it was just me, but he was such a blessing to work with because he was such a good writer and such a good director, and he loved music, and he was always incorporating that. But another great talent he had was just listening and collaborating. You know, he wasn't uptight about stuff. He'd let you try stuff, and he'd be like, yeah, do that, you know. And he was really great that way. So he was really, you know, he put me on the map, and let's hear it for John Hughes, you know, all his movies. I mean, I wouldn't be here without you, John, so thank God for John Hughes. Yeah, and thank you for your question.
All right, gentlemen, want to come over here? Fine. We'll do this Donahue style. Raise a hand, and I'll come to you.
How come this side's not getting any love? Over
I
here.
can do that.
You guys okay over here?
Do I have any hands? I'm a short guy, so.
Everybody's napping over there.
Hi. All right, young lady over here. Hello, what's your name?
Hi, Tanya. What's your favorite memory from working on The Breakfast Club?
My favorite memory of working on The Breakfast Club. That shit was kind of serious. It was like shooting a play. So we were kind of like, it was like we did about 10 pages a day. It was actually kind of a serious environment. But I think the scene where we all got high was pretty fun. And I remember enjoying when everybody got paired off and they were doing their dances and all that. I thought that was kind of funny too. What happened was we actually shot, the footnote, the thing that comes to mind is this is before the USFL came back. But back in the day, who remembers in the 80s, USFL? We shot at the thank you. We shot at this high school that had been shut down. There was just such affluence in Chicago that they had high schools they wouldn't use.
Remembering.
So we shot inside a gymnasium that they built that set in, the library set. So that was fun, but it was like, I remember we were at the O'Hare, Chicago O'Hare Hilton by the airport. So I'd get in a van every day, and then we'd go to the school, and then we'd be in that set. And it was kind of heavy, you know, but there was a lot of humor in there too. And John was cool. He would give us rehearsal time. Like we got together for about a week before we started shooting and just kind of talked about the scenes and rehearsed them. And he was very collaborative in that way. But yeah, that was fun. I think that was probably like a highlight for me, seeing Molly doing her, you know, the 80s dance, and seeing Emilio doing whatever the hell he was doing, tumbling and rolling on this upper level. And then Judd Nelson, there is truth to those rumors that he did piss a lot of people off on that set, and he almost got fired, but that was a method acting choice of Judd's. You know, I think he just kind of wanted to piss Molly off for the whole time. It worked. So that was fun. That was fun. Good experience. Thank you.
Thank you, and as a member of Starfleet, thank you for your service. Thank you for the way too. All right.
Trek thing, right? Yeah.
Hello. What's your name?
I'm Patty.
Hi, Patty.
Me too. All right.
Patty, meet Patty.
Hi. I was wondering if you didn't pursue a career in acting, what do you think you would have gone for?
Good question. I've been asked that before. Probably, I love music. I might have been a musician, or I love photography. I don't know. There's a lot of things. Something creative, I think. You know. Yeah, I think so. Sorry, that was a boring answer, but that was it.
No, it's all good. Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Patty and Patty. Patty and Patty. Get him a Segway.
Zero. Hi, what's your name?
I'm Lucy.
Hi, Lucy.
Just out of pure curiosity, how did you end up playing Sykes on Warehouse 13? Did you just want that role, or they offered it to you? Or?
Oh, right, yeah. I was like the bad guy in a wheelchair. That was interesting. And then I had a whip or something. Honestly, as soon as I shoot these things, I forget. So when things come up, you got to remind me. That was really fun, though. I have to say, that cast was great. That guy, Eddie, and all the ladies on that show, they were really excellent actors to work with. And I thought that show had a real good sense of humor about it, which was fun, you know. I think the Dead Zone could have used some more of that. But thank you for your question, yeah. It was a fun shoot.
Okay, back over on this side. Who had won?
We'll come back.
Oh, yes, young lady.
Okay. This lady, well,
Hi, what's your name?
Janelle.
Janelle. Hi, Janelle.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Out of everyone that you worked with, or just all the people that you've worked with over the years, are you guys still friends, still cool? Did you form really great friendships? Do you still talk to Molly Ringwald?
I don't talk to Molly Ringwald that much. I don't, but Downey and I are still friends. We've maintained. I think of all the actors that I've worked with, probably Downey is the one that I've stayed close with, and Bill Paxton was a friend of mine. God rest his soul. I know we all miss Bill. He was a great guy. Let's give it up for Bill. Yeah. But most of my friends do other things. To be very honest, yeah. I should network more. Apparently, note to self.
All right.
I think I should really. It might get me some more work.
Who's making me put in my steps in? Okay. Hey, what's your name?
I'm Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi. If you hadn't played the nerd in the Breakfast Club, who would you have rather played?
That's a good question. Who in that film?
Yes.
Bender would have been fun. Yeah, I don't know. I like Bender's role. I thought that was fun. But Molly would have nothing to do with me then. She didn't, yeah. 2 movies in a row. She was like, yeah. And then we wound up dating of all ironic
Who would
things.
you have cast him as?
I don't know. He was so good as the nerd.
Because he's a great actor, right? Yeah,
Thank
all right.
you.
That's why.
Thank
Great,
you.
oh, great question.
And then he hands her
Thank you.
candy.
Yes. Well, everybody asks a question, gets a piece.
Yeah, kid, buy a dog. Here's a 5.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Amy. We spoke earlier.
Hi, Amy.
Hey.
We meet again. Yes.
And this actually was provoked by the girl back here who asked about the Breakfast Club. And I don't know if you know the answer to this. Is there an end to the joke when Judd falls through the ceiling?
Oh, yeah. People ask me that. I still don't know what that is. I don't, yeah. I know. I know. I think I'm going to see Judd next month at Steel City Con. I'm going to ask him. I know. I should put it on blast. I know exactly.
All right, yeah.
I will. If I find out, I know. And then he falls through the ceiling. I know. I don't know. But he and Paul Gleason, they almost kind of really went at it too. Here's a really funny story. When I did Johnny Be Good, Paul Gleason got into a fight with Seymour Cassell. Do you guys remember who Seymour Cassell was, this actor? Anyway, that's an IMDb for later. But what was funny as hell is that they were both like in their late, like my age now, in their 50s or 60s, that they got into a fist fight on the set of Johnny Be Good. I don't know why that came to mind, but anyway, moving on. It was hilarious too.
Well, we'll just.
And then we were actually on the platform, and it was a scene where like, I don't know what the hell it was. Oh no, I was speaking in a gymnasium at the end. Anyway, these two old men got into a fist fight. It was hilarious shit on the set of Johnny Be Good. And Johnny Be Good has been referred to by Downey as Johnny B. Movie. I'm like, fuck you, Iron Man. I know it. Okay, tax bracket. I'm watching you. No, Downey's cool.
All right.
You could give me a loan though. Okay.
Hey, what's your name?
Nina.
Hi, Nina.
So you've played quite a few genres in movies and TV. Do you have a specific genre you like or would like to play?
Back to the Danny Trejo line. It's like being a mechanic. You go where the work is. A lot of people have the good fortune and the blessing of having work offered to them, and I've had that. But for most of my career, to be honest, you have to work for it. And Hollywood plays it like that. They make you work for it. I mean, even on something like Halloween Kills, I had to screen test. But what I've done in more recent years is sometimes I'll request a meeting with the director to see if I can just be in sync with that person and kind of get a sense of their vision and what they want to do. And then I'll screen test, So that happens a lot at the highest levels. It really does. But it's good, too, in a way, because you have to earn your stuff, and you're only as good as your last thing, unfortunately, a lot of times in Hollywood, So it's a tough business, but it refines you over time. You have to really stay hungry and have a desire to keep going. So I thank God that I've had that, and also a hard head just to be in show business. It's just that in itself. And thank you for your question.
And a great Zatanna cosplay. I assume Zatanna, right? Okay, just making sure. Do you have a hat? Oh. All right, I don't want to put it out. You got one of us. All right. What's your name?
Steve.
Hey, Steve.
So we all see these things where, it could have been this person that landed this role, but it was this one. It could have been this person that was so close. Did you ever come close to a role you just missed?
Well, you know what? I did. It's not that I missed it, but like I was going to do Full Metal Jacket, and it was crazy because it was like an 8-month negotiation with Stanley Kubrick. It became like a chess game. And at one point, my father, God rest his soul, who was my manager, got a call from Kubrick's attorney. And Kubrick's attorney wanted to know if my father had read a book called Nuclear Negotiations. We're just trying to cast me in a movie, right? So Stanley Kubrick was a trip. And long story short, it didn't work out. It was the economics. He was known for not paying people well. And if I have anything close to a regret in my life, it's having maybe not had that opportunity to work with him. But I did speak with him, and it was incredible. So I'm shooting Weird Science, and I get a call from my manager saying, Stanley Kubrick wants you for this part, and he's going to call you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So I'm up at like 7:30 pacing in my room next to next to Universal, the Sheridan Premiere used to be called. And he gets on the phone, and he had a very youthful voice, and he started talking about all these filmmakers like Eisenstein and Chaplin and some of his favorite filmmakers. And but he also told me that he had screened 16 Candles like 3 times, and I was like, what? I was like 17 years old. And he said, he gave me a great compliment. He said, he said I was his favorite actor he had seen since Jack and Easy Rider. And I was like, mic drop. Sorry, guys. I was really humbled by that, and I was honored to have met his acquaintance. I wish it worked out. And then cut to 3 years later, I run into Matthew Modine in Manhattan. And I go, bro, how long did you shoot that movie for? He goes, 54 weeks. I went, great. Wow. A year and 2 weeks he shot that film. So, but then it's interesting how things work, because unfortunately at that time, Platoon was the film that people really went to, and I think over time people appreciate Full Metal Jacket as a great film as well, but it was an honor to even speak to him, so thank you for that. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few. Okay.
Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Delighted to see you again. We met you at AwesomeCon a couple of years ago.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
We'll be seeing you tomorrow for certain.
Thank you very much.
Loved having you come into the Goldbergs. What was kind of your favorite part? I think nostalgia. Like, I love to watch that show to remember my childhood. Did it bring back any flood of memories when you were on set?
I think the wardrobe department with all those 80s sweaters flying around, that was pretty funny. One thing I have to note, too, about that AwesomeCon, that was really interesting. Until I got there, and I was like, this show is run by the CIA. I kept walking around like, what's going on here? Anyway, that show's no longer happening, but nice to see you again. Yeah, the Goldbergs was a great experience. I loved working with Wendy. She's really a wonderful lady. really down to earth and a lot of fun to work with. And she ad-libs a lot. And so she was really a lot of fun, and all the kids are really great. I mean, it's a really nice thing. I started to mention earlier, I feel really blessed when I can work on a hit show. I really prefer that because they're well-oiled machines. You know, when I joined the cast of the Goldbergs, it was in its 7th season. And everybody's in a good mood. They're well paid, and the really decent hours and not really long hours on that. So it's very fortunate when you have the good fortune to work on a hit show because you're coming into a system that's already trucking along. So, and that was a lot of fun to work with her. You know, I went, as I said, from playing Rusty at Disneyland that wouldn't let them in to the guidance counselor to her love interest. So, you know, it was a good testament to just showing up and doing my job, and they kept giving me more stuff to do, which was a lot of fun. So thank you for your question. Yeah.
We had time for one more, so this gentleman right here. Hey, what's your name?
Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
I came in late, so sorry if this was already discussed, but I was a really big fan of...
We covered that.
Really enjoyed Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Oh, thank you.
I was just curious if you had a favorite memory from that experience.
You know, it was interesting. I worked with this acting coach named Steve Bridgewater, that one of the producers was a friend of Steve's. And Steve was an interesting guy. He was a former actor and a screenwriter. He actually told me a great story about the Fisher King. He actually, this is really fun. I got to tell you this story. He went undercover and pretended to be a FedEx guy so he could get into Terry Gilliam's room at the Mondrian on Sunset Strip and deliver the Fisher King to him, which had been written by his friend. Terry Gilliam was so cool, he was in on the joke, loved it, and wound up making the film. So cut back to Steve Bridgewater. This guy was an actor, writer, director, and he was a great acting coach. And I worked with him for about 5 weeks before we started shooting Pirates. And I really wanted to do a couple of things. I read as much as I could about Bill Gates to the point where I was like pissing the other actors off because I was like, your guy was at Harvard, you know, dog-earing pages and showing them, you know. And I really got into it. But the first day I worked with Steve Bridgewater, he did something really funny. We started talking about how Bill Gates kind of sounds like Kermit the Frog if you listen to him. So our first session, he pulls out literally a tampon. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? He goes, I got this from my wife. I'm like, cool, I'm glad you're married. With a tampon in your pocket. Anyway, so he takes out the tampon, he opens it up, and he pulls out the padding, and he cuts it up. And he goes, Mike, I think if you like take a piece of this and stick it in your nostril, it'll kind of help you with the voice. Sure enough. So there's scenes in Pirates of Silicon Valley where I'm, in fact, wearing or using a piece of tampon on my nose to get it down, right? So the first thing I did was the comb over at the audition. I got a pair of those goofy-ass glasses he used to wear. And believe it or not, a tampon on the nose helped. So I worked with this acting coach for 5 weeks, and I was like, I mean, I was annoying when I was making the film because I was listening to him all the time on my Walkman. Anybody remember the Walkman back in the day? Remember cassettes? So I'd be listening to Bill Gates, right? But meanwhile, I read that he was like always getting like tickets in his Porsche, right? So, and of course, sure enough, I'm like speeding to work, listening to Bill Gates. So I was doing all these things that were just kind of annoying, but it really helped me because that was like my own prep. I just wanted to be really close to him. Steve showed up on set and was there for me and helped me. And so a lot of it was finding the voice, finding things that he would do. Steve and I noticed certain things Gates would do, like in interviews. He'd be talking to the interviewer, and then he'd get ideas and kind of pull them down from the ether up here. He'd be like, you know, the internet, and then he'd be like bringing it down. So I just really tried to break Bill Gates down, you know. So that's how that happened. And then the other interesting thing he did, and this is the power of having a great coach or great teachers in life, as we all know. The first thing that Steve did on day one is I didn't mention this earlier, I'm sorry. He said, let's make a list of goals. And the first 3 things he said, do you want people to see you or Bill Gates? I said, Bill Gates. And he goes, what's your second goal? I said, I'd love the film to be nominated, you know, for some Emmys or something. And I forget the other 8 things, but it was nominated for 5 Emmys. And Martin Burke, who's our writer-director, did a great job. And it was a great cast of actors. And it's kind of an old story now because that was the battle over software between IBM, as you guys know, and Apple and Microsoft. And so that's kind of archaic now in the world of apps and everything else that we're all living with on our phones these days. But great experience for me, and I appreciate that. So anyways, hope I didn't bore you guys too much. Hope you had fun.
No. Anything else on the horizon, on the docket, that you're allowed to share with us?
Yeah, well, I have Reacher, as I said, Reacher Season 3 I'm shooting. That'll be out later this year, and I'm on Bosch Legacy right now, and much more ahead. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, guys.
GalaxyCon 2024, this, Matthew Michael Hall. That was our time.